Welcome to the Forgotten Narrator. Alright, so let's talk about one of the most mysterious and controversial figures in the entire history of the Imperium, Malcador the Sigillite. Known as the Emperor's closest ally, the Grand Master of the Administratum, and one of the most powerful psychers in human history, Malcador is a figure wrapped in shadow and enigma. Officially, his story ends on the Golden Throne, his body turned to dust as he gave his final breath to keep the Emperor alive. But is that really the end? Or is there a chance that the Sigillite, the Emperor's most trusted advisor, might still be out there, pulling strings from the shadows, guiding the fate of humanity in secret? For those who have studied the countless secrets of the Warhammer 40k universe, it's not such a wild idea. After all, Malcador was a master of deception, a being of such cunning and foresight that even his closest allies rarely understood his true intentions. If anyone could have faked his own death or found a way to transcend his mortal form, it would be him. And perhaps, just perhaps, the death of Malcador was not the end of his story, but merely the beginning of a far more secretive and dangerous chapter in his existence. A chapter that remains hidden in the darkest corners of the Imperium, waiting to be uncovered. In those final chaotic days on Terra, as the Horus heresy reached its catastrophic climax, Malcador the Sigillite stood as one of the last unbroken pillars of the Emperor's vision. It's hard to imagine the sheer weight on his shoulders during that time. Terra itself had become a fortress, a world choked by the black smoke of siege engines and the thunderous echoes of orbital bombardments. The sky was a nightmare of shattered ships and falling debris, the very air trembling with the psychic screams of dying warriors and the tortured whispers of the warp. Malcador, as the Emperor's right hand, found himself at the heart of this storm, struggling to hold together the crumbling dream of human unity. His final act is one of the most famous in Imperial history, but also one of the most misunderstood. According to the official records, Malcador took the Emperor's place on the Golden Throne in the final moments of the Siege of Terra, channeling the immeasurable energies of the Astronomicon, while the Emperor faced Horus on his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit. It was a desperate, almost suicidal move, but one that bought the Emperor those precious final moments needed to confront his fallen son. To take on such a burden, knowing full well it would cost him his life, shows the depth of Malcador's loyalty and conviction. Yet the true cost of this act remains a matter of speculation. When the Emperor returned, broken and dying, to the Golden Throne, he found the Sigillite a withered, near-dead husk. The legends claim that Malcador managed a final whispering breath before his body crumbled to ash, his essence scattered to the winds as the last echoes of his mind slipped into the immaterium. It is a fittingly dramatic end for a figure as enigmatic as Malcador. But is that really the whole story? Many fans have speculated that this seemingly final sacrifice might not have been as straightforward as it appears. After all, Malcador was no ordinary human. He was one of the most powerful psychers of his age, second only to the Emperor himself, and a master of secretive, ancient lore. Some theories suggest that, in those final moments, Malcador may have enacted a ritual or invoked a hidden contingency plan, one that allowed his mind to survive even as his body failed. Perhaps his essence was cast into the warp, becoming something akin to a living ghost, a psychic echo lingering in the depths of the Emperor's mind, or even within the dark recesses of the Astronomicon itself. Others believe that Malcador's death on the Golden Throne was more symbolic than literal, a grand deception meant to mislead both his allies and his enemies. If anyone could have pulled off such a deception, it would have been Malcador. He had long played the role of the Emperor's shadow, a figure who thrived in the darkest corners of the Imperium's intrigue, manipulating events with a subtlety and cunning that even the most twisted minds of the traitor legions struggled to match. It's possible that what crumbled to dust on the Golden Throne was merely a fragment of Malcador's true self, a decoy, a psychic projection, or perhaps a clone, created to distract the eyes of friend and foe alike, while the real Sigillite slipped into the shadows to continue his work. This theory gains even more weight when one considers the Emperor's own words in the moments before he was entombed in the Golden Throne. He spoke of unfinished work and the need for his loyal followers to remain vigilant. to carry on his great work even in his absence. Could this have been a veiled reference to Malcador's survival? A secret pact between the Emperor and his closest ally, known only to the most trusted members of the Imperium's inner circle? Of course, these are just theories, fragments of whispers and half-forgotten records buried deep within the catacombs of the Imperial Palace, or perhaps even the forbidden archives of the Black Library. But for those who know the true nature of the Imperium, where nothing is ever as it seems, and death itself can be but a temporary inconvenience, the idea that Malcador might have found a way to cheat his own demise is not so far-fetched. The truth, as always, is likely far stranger than the legends, and perhaps even now, the Sigillite watches from the shadows, guiding humanity's fate with a hand as cold and calculating as ever. When we talk about Malcador's powers, it's important to remember that this wasn't just a man who happened to be a powerful psyker. He was, by many accounts, the second most potent human psyker in the galaxy, second only to the Emperor himself. This alone sets him apart from nearly every other figure in the Imperium. A being whose very presence could warp reality, twist the minds of lesser beings, and touch the dark currents of the immaterium without being consumed by it. It's this raw, untamed psychic power that has led some to question whether Malcador truly perished on the Golden Throne, or whether he might have found a way to transcend his physical form entirely. To understand Malcador's powers, one must first grasp the sheer scale of his abilities. He wasn't just a psyker in the conventional sense, hurling lightning bolts or reading minds like some Astartes librarian. No, Malcador's talents went far deeper. He was a master of foresight, capable of peering into the tangled threads of fate itself, seeing not just the immediate future, but the long, twisted paths of destiny that stretched across millennia. It's said that he could walk the skeins of time as easily as a mortal man might stroll through a garden, tracing the faint echoes of choices not yet made and glimpsing the shadows of battles not yet fought. Some fan theories even suggest that Malcador's psychic gifts allowed him to cheat death itself, to project his consciousness beyond the bounds of his fragile human form. There are whispers that Malcador, in his final moments, may have enacted a ritual so complex, so arcane, that it allowed him to transfer his essence into the warp, becoming a ghostly echo or even a form of warp entity. After all, the warp is a realm where the rules of life and death are twisted, where thought and emotion become reality, and where a being as powerful as Malcador might find a way to persist long after his physical body has turned to dust. Others argue that Malcador's mastery of psychic manipulation extended far beyond mere survival. There are hints in ancient texts and forbidden lore that he might have known the secrets of true psychic immortality, the kind of soul-binding rituals that allow a being to anchor their consciousness to a physical object or even another living being. Some believe that Malcador may have prepared such a vessel, perhaps a piece of his own psychic essence, hidden away in a forgotten corner of the Imperial Palace or in one of the countless secret vaults he established across the galaxy. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador still lingers in some form, a ghost in the machine of the Imperium, guiding his creations from beyond the veil of death. And then there's the possibility that Malcador's psychic strength came not just from his own raw power, but from a deeper, more fundamental understanding of the nature of the warp itself. Unlike most psychers, who merely wield the raw energies of the immaterium like a weapon, Malcador is said to have been a true scholar of the warp, a being who understood its mysteries in a way that even the Emperor might have struggled to match. It's possible that Malcador discovered a way to shield his essence from the predations of the dark gods, to carve out a safe haven for his soul in the chaotic tides of the immaterium, or even to transform himself into something more than human, a being of pure will, existing forever in the depths of the warp. Some have even speculated that Malcador's connection to the Emperor was deeper than mere loyalty or friendship, that he might have been more than just a servant or a tool. Perhaps he and the Emperor shared a psychic bond, a link that allowed them to share thoughts and emotions across vast distances, even across the gulf between life and death. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador's essence might still cling to the shattered remains of the Emperor's mind, a silent whisper guiding his shattered soul as it clings to the Golden Throne. When you consider the relationship between Malcador and the Emperor, it's clear that theirs was a bond forged in the fires of ambition, vision, and an unrelenting desire to reshape the galaxy. Malcador wasn't just another servant or subordinate. He was a confidant, a co-conspirator, and perhaps even the only being in the galaxy who truly understood the Emperor's long-term plans. This relationship, marked by mutual respect and a shared sense of purpose, likely included layers of secrecy and hidden agendas that extended far beyond the battlefield or the halls of the Imperial Palace. Many fans have speculated that Malcador and the Emperor shared a deeper, unspoken understanding about the nature of their roles in the grand plan for humanity. The Emperor, a being of almost incomprehensible power and foresight, must have known that his physical form would one day fail, that he would need more than just an army to secure humanity's future. He would need a shadow, a hand to guide the Imperium in his absence, a figure who could act where he could not, speak where he must remain silent, and watch over the cracks in the foundations of his empire. Malcador was that figure. Some even believe that Malcador's death on the Golden Throne was not merely a sacrifice, but a carefully orchestrated piece of misdirection, a final act of stagecraft intended to distract the eyes of the galaxy from his true purpose. After all, the Emperor himself was no stranger to deception and misdirection, having spent uncounted centuries manipulating human history from the shadows before revealing himself to the galaxy. It stands to reason that his closest ally, his most trusted friend, would have shared in this philosophy of secrecy and manipulation. There are hints scattered throughout Imperial history that suggest the Emperor and Malcador may have planned for such a deception long before the Siege of Terra. Some ancient records and half-forgotten whispers speak of secret conversations, of hidden chambers deep within the Imperial Palace, where the two would meet in private, away from the prying eyes of even their most loyal servants. These meetings, it is said, were not merely strategy sessions, but deep, philosophical discussions about the nature of power, the fate of humanity, and the true cost of empire. Consider for a moment the creation of the Inquisition, an organization born from Malcador's own vision and crafted in the crucible of humanity's darkest days. It's possible that the Inquisition was not merely a tool for rooting out heresy and corruption, but also a means for Malcador to extend his own influence long after his supposed death. Perhaps he created it as a shadow empire within the Imperium, a hidden hand that could act independently of the Emperor's direct control, guided by his own secret teachings and bound to his will even beyond the grave. Then there's the matter of the Grey Knights, another of Malcador's creations. These warriors, shrouded in mystery and bound by oaths of secrecy, are said to bear the genetic legacy of the Emperor himself. But what if their true purpose goes even deeper? What if the Grey Knights were not just created to stand against the horrors of the warp, but also to serve as the Sigillite's eyes and ears in the darkness, to carry out his will and protect his secrets long after his mortal form had perished? There are also the strange, cryptic messages left behind by Malcador in the final hours of the Siege of Terra. Some of these messages, recorded by his most trusted followers, hint at plans within plans, at contingencies that would only be activated in the event of his apparent death. Perhaps Malcador foresaw the need for his own disappearance, for a retreat into the shadows where he could continue his work without the constraints of physical mortality. And then, of course, there is the Emperor's own silence on the matter. For a being who once ruled a galaxy with absolute authority, the Emperor has been curiously quiet on the subject of his closest ally's fate. Some interpret this as a sign of respect, a final act of loyalty to a fallen friend. Others, however, see it as something far more sinister, a silent acknowledgement of a pact made long ago, a dark agreement between two of the most powerful beings in human history. It's this very ambiguity, this sense of hidden meaning and unspoken truths, that keeps the legend of Malcador alive to this day. For if there's one thing the Emperor and Malcador understood better than anyone else, it is that power thrives on secrecy, that the greatest victories are often those that remain hidden, and that sometimes The only way to truly win is to let the world believe you have lost. If there's one thing Malcador was known for, it was his ability to plan for every possible outcome. This was a man who spent centuries weaving a web of influence across the galaxy, building secret alliances, manipulating events, and creating entire institutions that would outlive his mortal form. Given this, it's not such a stretch to imagine that he might have prepared a series of hidden refuges or sanctuaries, places where he could retreat, recover, and perhaps even rebuild his strength in the aftermath of the Siege of Terra. The idea that Malcador might have constructed hidden sanctuaries is not just idle speculation. Throughout Imperial history, there are countless references to secret bases, forgotten outposts, and ancient vaults scattered across the galaxy. Places where the Sigillite's influence can still be felt, where his followers still whisper his name and carry out his forgotten orders. Some of these places, it is said, lie deep beneath the surface of Terra itself, hidden within the labyrinthine depths of the Imperial Palace or buried beneath the ruined spires of ancient cities that predate the Imperium by tens of thousands of years. One particularly intriguing theory suggests that Malcador may have created a network of psychic sanctuaries, places where the veil between reality and the warp is thin, and where a powerful psyker like himself might find refuge from the ravages of time and the predations of the dark gods. These sanctuaries, it is believed, are shielded by powerful wards and psychic barriers, designed to conceal their existence from even the most powerful of the Emperor's enemies. Some have speculated that these sanctuaries might even serve as conduits for Malcador's consciousness, allowing him to project his will across vast distances, or to influence the minds of those who wander too close to his hidden domains. There are also whispers of entire worlds dedicated to Malcador's memory, secretive bastions of knowledge and power where his followers still labor in the shadows, preparing for the day when their master might return. These worlds, it is said, are hidden deep within the galactic core, or buried in the dark reaches of the halo stars, far beyond the reach of the Inquisition or the prying eyes of the Imperium's many enemies. Some even believe that these worlds might hold the key to Malcador's survival, that they serve as psychic batteries, feeding his lingering essence and keeping his spirit bound to the material plane. Another, more chilling theory suggests that Malcador may have prepared entire armies of hidden warriors, genetic experiments, or mind-wiped thralls, waiting in stasis for the day when they might be called upon to serve their long-dead master. These forces, it is said, lie dormant in forgotten vaults and sealed catacombs, guarded by automated defenses and psychic traps that would kill or drive insane any intruder foolish enough to seek them out. Perhaps these warriors even carry fragments of Malcador's own psychic essence, bound to their very souls as a final, desperate gambit to ensure his continued influence over the Imperium. And then there's the possibility that Malcador's refuges are not merely physical places, but entire dimensions of his own creation. Pockets of reality carved from the raw chaos of the warp, where time and space twist in strange and unnatural ways, and where his mind might still linger, undisturbed by the passing of ages. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something more than a mere ghost, a being of pure thought, a living fragment of the Emperor's will, capable of reaching out from the shadows to guide his followers and shape the fate of the galaxy. The idea that Malcador's influence might still linger over Terra, even after his supposed death, is one that has captured the imaginations of many within the Imperium's more secretive circles. After all, this was a man who spent centuries shaping the very foundations of human power, a figure whose shadow stretched across the galaxy, touching everything from the highest offices of the Administratum to the darkest corners of the Inquisition. It's not so far-fetched to imagine that even in death, Malcador's influence might continue to echo through the corridors of power, shaping the destiny of humanity in ways that even the High Lords of Terra might not fully understand. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence for this theory comes from the nature of the Inquisition itself. This organization, which Malcador helped to create, is perhaps the most secretive and paranoid institution in the entire Imperium. A shadow government within a shadow government, dedicated to rooting out heresy and corruption wherever it might be found. Some have suggested that the Inquisition's very structure, its reliance on secrecy, its obsession with hidden truths, and its willingness to act outside the bounds of conventional morality, is a reflection of Malcador's own philosophy. It's possible that the Inquisition still operates according to hidden directives left behind by the Sigillite, long-forgotten orders encoded in its very foundation, guiding its actions even now, millennia after his supposed death. Then there's the matter of the Grey Knights, the Emperor's secretive demon-hunting warriors, who were also created by Malcador in the final days of the Horus Heresy. These warriors are said to be bound by oaths of silence and secrecy, their true nature hidden even from their fellow Space Marines. It's possible that these warriors, like the Inquisition, still serve as instruments of Malcador's will, carrying out his final hidden commands and acting as his eyes and ears within the dark places of the galaxy. Some even believe that the Grey Knights might be the inheritors of Malcador's psychic legacy, that they carry a fragment of his own essence within them, bound to their souls as a final safeguard against the corruption of the warp. There are also strange, persistent rumors of secret societies and hidden orders operating within the ranks of the imperial bureaucracy, whispering of ancient pacts and forgotten alliances, of secret councils that meet in the depths of the imperial palace to decide the fate of entire worlds. Some believe that these organizations might be the remnants of Malcador's old power base, his most loyal followers, who refused to abandon their master even after his death, and who now act as a hidden hand within the machinery of the Imperium, pulling the strings of power from the shadows. Even the High Lords of Terra, those most powerful of imperial officials, are not immune to such speculation. Some have suggested that Malcador might have left behind agents within the very heart of imperial power, trusted advisors and political operatives who continue to act on his behalf, ensuring that his vision for humanity endures even as the Imperium crumbles into superstition and decay. Perhaps these agents, bound by oaths of loyalty and armed with knowledge of secrets known only to the Sigillite himself, still work to guide the Imperium toward the future their master envisioned, even as they hide their true purpose from their fellow lords and bureaucrats. And then there are the Whispers of the Black Ships, those ominous vessels that travel the galaxy, collecting psychers for the Emperor's golden throne. It's said that some of these ships bear strange markings and sigils, symbols that have not been seen since the days of the Great Crusade, and that their crews speak in hushed tones of ancient pacts and forgotten alliances. Perhaps these ships, like the Grey Knights and the Inquisition, still carry out the final orders of their long-dead master, acting as his agents in the darkness, collecting the raw psychic power needed to sustain the Emperor's shattered form. Of course, these are just theories, the kind of speculative whispers that echo through the dark corridors of the Inquisition and the hidden vaults of the Grey Knights. But for those who have studied the long, bloody history of the Imperium, the idea that Malcador's influence might still linger over Terra is not so far-fetched. After all, this was a man who built empires in secret, who wielded the power of a god, and who understood the nature of the galaxy in ways that even the Emperor himself might never fully comprehend. The Custodians, those silent, towering guardians of the Emperor, are perhaps the most enigmatic figures within the entire Imperium. They are warriors without equal, beings whose entire existence is devoted to the protection of their master, a responsibility that transcends mere loyalty or duty. To a custodian, the Emperor is not just a god, but the very embodiment of human destiny, the living soul of the Imperium itself. Given this, it's not hard to imagine that they might have played a role in protecting one of the Emperor's closest allies, a figure as pivotal to the survival of the Imperium as Malcador, the Sigillite. For centuries, the Custodians have maintained a stoic silence on the matter of Malcador's death, refusing to confirm or deny the many rumors that surround his final moments. This in itself is telling, for the Custodians are not mere warriors, but the Emperor's chosen, his most trusted companions and advisors. They would have known Malcador personally, fought beside him in the dark days of the Horus Heresy, and shared in the Emperor's most secret councils. If anyone in the Imperium still holds the truth about Malcador's fate, it is the Custodians. Some have suggested that the Custodians might have been sworn to protect Malcador's secrets even after his apparent death, that they took solemn oaths to carry his legacy into the dark future of the Imperium. These oaths, it is said, are bound not by mere words, but by the very fabric of their souls, etched into their minds and hearts through ancient, psychic rituals known only to the Emperor and his most trusted servants. If this is true, then it's possible that the Custodians are more than just silent guardians, that they are, in fact, the keepers of Malcador's final secrets, bound by sacred duty to ensure that his work continues long after his physical form has turned to dust. There are even whispers of a secret order within the Custodians, a hidden brotherhood dedicated to the preservation of Malcador's legacy. Some believe that this order, known only as the Sigillite's Watch, acts as a shadowy force within the ranks of the Custodians, a silent, ever-watchful presence that moves behind the scenes, manipulating events and guiding the course of human history in accordance with Malcador's final wishes. These warriors, it is said, bear special marks upon their armor, symbols known only to their brothers, and speak in a secret language passed down through the generations, a language that echoes the ancient words of their fallen master. There is also the matter of the Custodians' strange, almost fanatical devotion to secrecy. Unlike the Astartes, who openly celebrate their victories and record their deeds for future generations, the Custodians shroud their actions in mystery, erasing their own names from the annals of history and destroying any record of their existence beyond the walls of the imperial palace. This obsession with secrecy, this desire to conceal their true nature from the wider Imperium, has led some to speculate that the Custodians are not merely protecting the Emperor, but also guarding the secrets of Malcador himself. Secrets that, if revealed, might shake the very foundations of the Imperium. Consider for a moment the strange case of the Vaults of Rhython, a hidden complex said to lie deep beneath the Imperial Palace, sealed by wards and psychic barriers that only a Custodian can pass. It is said that these vaults contain artifacts of unimaginable power, relics of the Dark Age of technology and the Great Crusade, as well as records of conversations between the Emperor and Malcador, written in a language so ancient that even the tech priests of Mars cannot decipher it. Some believe that these vaults hold the key to Malcador's survival, that within their shadowed halls lie the secrets of his true fate, waiting to be uncovered by those brave or foolish enough to seek them out. And then there are the Custodians themselves, those silent, faceless warriors who patrol the halls of the Imperial Palace, their golden armor gleaming in the darkness, their eyes ever watchful for signs of treachery or heresy. These warriors, who have stood beside the Emperor for over 10,000 years, are said to bear the psychic scars of their long service, their minds filled with the echoes of ancient wars and forgotten oaths. Some believe that these warriors carry within them the final fragments of Malcador's will, that their very souls are bound to his memory, and that they serve not just the Emperor, but also the last flickering remnants of the Sigillite's shattered dreams. Malcador was never just a passive observer of humanity's fate. He was a planner, a schemer, a visionary who looked at the chaotic whirl of the galaxy and sought to impose order upon it. For centuries, he stood at the Emperor's side, whispering advice, weaving plots, and laying the foundations for a human empire that would stretch across the stars. But what if his plans didn't end with his death on the Golden Throne? What if Malcador, ever the master strategist, had foreseen the dark future that awaited humanity and left behind a series of prophecies and hidden plans to guide the Imperium through the long, dark millennia to come? One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for this theory comes from the very nature of the organizations that Malcador helped to create. The Inquisition, the Grey Knights, the Officio Assassinorum. These are not just tools of control, but engines of survival, designed to protect the Imperium from threats that most of humanity cannot even comprehend. It's possible that Malcador, knowing full well the dangers that lay ahead, left behind a series of hidden directives, secret commands encoded within the very fabric of these institutions, to be activated in the event of his apparent death. Perhaps he foresaw the rise of new, darker powers, the slow decay of the Imperium, and the eventual return of ancient, forgotten enemies. Some have even suggested that Malcador may have left behind a series of psychic messages, fragments of his own consciousness encoded within the minds of his most trusted followers, to be awakened in times of great crisis. These messages, it is said, might lie dormant within the minds of Inquisitors, Grey Knights, or even the Custodians themselves, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves and guide their hosts toward the fulfillment of Malcador's final plans. There's also the strange matter of the Emperor's Tarot, a deck of psychically charged cards said to contain the wisdom of the Emperor himself, but which some believe was actually created by Malcador as a tool for guiding the Imperium through the darkest days of its history. This deck, it is said, contains hidden messages and secret prophecies, encoded in the strange, shifting symbols that only a psyker can interpret. Perhaps Malcador, in his final moments, infused the tarot with fragments of his own foresight, a final gift to the Imperium, a guidebook for the dark future that he knew was coming. Then there are the countless hidden vaults and forgotten archives scattered across the galaxy, places where Malcador's followers still labor in secret, guarding forbidden knowledge and ancient relics that might one day hold the key to humanity's survival. These hidden bases, it is said, are more than just sanctuaries. They are part of a vast, galaxy-spanning network of hidden strongholds, each one a piece of a larger puzzle, a map that, if pieced together, might reveal the full extent of Malcador's final plans. Some have even speculated that Malcador's greatest legacy is not a physical creation, but a series of prophecies, whispered into the minds of his most trusted servants as he lay dying on the Golden Throne. These prophecies, it is said, foretell the rise of new champions, the fall of ancient enemies, and the eventual rebirth of the Imperium in a form that even the Emperor himself could not have foreseen. Perhaps Malcador, in his final moments, looked into the distant future and saw the terrible trials that awaited humanity, and in that moment of clarity, left behind the final hidden keys to mankind's survival. And then there is the question of the Black Library, that hidden repository of forbidden knowledge, said to contain the secrets of the galaxy's darkest and most dangerous powers. Some believe that Malcador, in his final days, left behind a series of encoded messages within the pages of this ancient archive, hidden passages that reveal his final, secret prophecies and his true plans for the future of humanity. If this is true, then it's possible that even now, hidden within the twisted, labyrinthine halls of the Black Library, lie the final fragments of Malcador's will, waiting to be discovered by those brave enough to seek them out. The warp is a place of whispers and echoes, a realm where the thoughts and emotions of the living become tangible, where time and space twist into impossible shapes, and where the souls of the dead linger like shadows in a storm. It is a place of madness and chaos, where the boundaries between life and death, reality and nightmare, blur into a tangled, ever-shifting maze. For most, the warp is a place of terror, a realm to be avoided at all costs, but for a psyker as powerful as Malcador, it might have represented something very different, a place of refuge, a final sanctuary where his mind could survive even after his body had crumbled to dust. There are those who believe that Malcador, in his final moments, may have projected his consciousness into the warp, using his vast psychic power to transcend his mortal form and become something more than human. This idea is not as far-fetched as it might seem. After all, the Emperor himself is said to linger within the Golden Throne, his shattered mind bound to the material world through sheer force of will. And there are countless tales of psykers who have managed to cheat death by casting their souls into the warp, becoming ghosts, specters, or even minor warp entities. Some have even suggested that Malcador might have become something akin to a watcher in the warp, a being of pure thought and will, capable of moving through the immaterium like a shadow, whispering into the minds of the living and shaping the tides of fate from beyond the grave. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador still lingers within the warp, his mind a ghostly presence that watches over the Imperium, guiding its leaders and whispering secrets into the ears of those brave enough to listen. There are even whispers of strange, psychic phenomena that have been observed near Terra, the kind of subtle, almost imperceptible ripples in the warp that suggest the presence of a powerful, lingering consciousness. Some believe that these ripples are the echoes of Malcador's mind, fragments of his consciousness that still cling to the psychic residue of the Golden Throne, like the fading echoes of a long-dead star. Others claim to have heard his voice in their dreams, a whisper in the darkness, a shadow that moves just beyond the edge of perception, guiding their actions and planting ideas in their minds without them ever realizing it. Then there are the strange, ghostly figures that some psychers claim to have seen in the depths of the warp, beings of shadow and fire who speak with voices like the crackling of ancient parchment and who seem to possess an unnatural knowledge of human history and the workings of the Imperium. Some believe that these beings are fragments of Malcador's mind, shattered remnants of his psychic essence that have taken on a life of their own within the twisted currents of the Imperium. Perhaps these figures are the last, lingering echoes of the Sigillite's will, fragments of his shattered soul that continue to fight for humanity's survival even as the galaxy crumbles into darkness. There are also those who claim that Malcador's influence can be felt in the actions of certain warp entities, that he has somehow managed to bend the will of lesser daemons to his own purposes, using their chaotic, twisted minds as instruments of his will. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something far more terrifying than a mere ghost. A living force within the warp, a being of pure, undying will that moves through the immaterium like a dark, silent tide, guiding the actions of those who still serve his memory. The idea that Malcador might have become something more than just a man is one that has fascinated fans for centuries. After all, this was no ordinary human. Malcador was a psyker of almost unparalleled power, a being who walked beside the Emperor himself, a master of the hidden arts, and a manipulator of fate on a scale that few in human history can even comprehend. If anyone in the history of the Imperium had the potential to transcend his mortal form and become something greater, it was Malcador the Sigillite. One of the most intriguing theories is that Malcador might have become a form of spiritual entity, a being of pure thought and will, whose essence lingers on even after his body turned to ash on the Golden Throne. It's a compelling idea, especially when you consider the nature of the warp, a place where the line between life and death is thin and often meaningless, and where the minds of the dead can linger on as ghosts, echoes, or even full-fledged warp entities. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something akin to a living memory, a shadow that whispers through the darkness of the warp, guiding the Imperium even now, millennia after his supposed death. Some have suggested that Malcador might have become something akin to a saint, a spiritual figure whose influence continues to shape the destiny of humanity long after his physical form has perished. This is not as far-fetched as it might seem. After all, the Imperium is filled with stories of martyrs and saints, figures whose souls are said to linger on in the minds of their followers, guiding them through the darkness and inspiring them to ever greater feats of heroism. Perhaps Malcador, in his final moments, infused his very soul into the fabric of the Imperium, becoming a living memory that watches over his creations from beyond the veil of death. Others believe that Malcador might have become something even more profound, a form of living consciousness, a being of pure psychic energy that exists within the warp itself, capable of reaching out to those who still serve his memory, whispering guidance and inspiration into their minds. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something akin to a god, a being of pure will and intellect, bound to the fate of humanity and destined to guide its course through the long, dark millennia to come. There are even those who believe that Malcador might have become something even stranger, a kind of living idea, a self-aware fragment of human consciousness that exists outside the boundaries of space and time, capable of influencing the thoughts and actions of those who still serve the Imperium. This idea, while more speculative, has a certain appeal, especially when you consider the nature of the warp and the way that emotions and thoughts can become tangible, living things within its twisted, ever-changing depths. Some have even suggested that Malcador's influence might still be felt in the actions of certain imperial institutions, that his spirit might linger on in the minds of his most loyal followers, guiding their actions and inspiring their deeds even now, thousands of years after his supposed death. Perhaps the Inquisition, the Grey Knights, and the Custodians are not just the creations of a long-dead human, but the living embodiments of his will. The last, flickering echoes of a mind that refuses to die, even as the galaxy itself crumbles into chaos. And then there is the possibility that Malcador has become something even more terrifying, a kind of ghost in the machine, a living presence that haunts the very infrastructure of the Imperium, manipulating data streams, whispering through the noosphere, and influencing the actions of those who still serve his memory. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something far more dangerous than a mere ghost. A living force within the very heart of the Imperium, a being of pure will that still shapes the destiny of humanity from the shadows, guiding its leaders and manipulating its armies as it prepares for the long, dark war that is yet to come. So after all this speculation, where does that leave us? Could Malcador still be alive, his mind somehow preserved beyond the bounds of mortal flesh, his will still guiding the Imperium from the shadows? Or is he truly gone, his ashes scattered to the winds, his spirit consumed in the final, desperate act of sacrifice that saved the Emperor and preserved the fragile dream of human unity? The truth, as always, is likely somewhere in between, a tangled web of myth, half-truths, and forgotten history, buried beneath the weight of 10,000 years of superstition and paranoia. What makes Malcador's legacy so compelling is not just the mystery of his death, but the sheer scale of his influence. This was a man who shaped the destiny of humanity, a figure whose shadow still looms over the Imperium even now, millennia after his supposed death. His influence can be felt in the cold, calculating machinations of the Inquisition, in the silent, watchful eyes of the Custodians, and in the whispered prayers of the Grey Knights as they march to war against the horrors of the warp. Even the High Lords of Terra, those most powerful of Imperial officials, owe their very existence to the structures that Malcador helped to create, their every word and action shaped by the ghostly echo of his long-dead will. And yet, for all his power, for all his cunning and foresight, Malcador remains a mystery, a figure wrapped in shadow and shrouded in myth. Perhaps this is exactly as he intended, a final act of misdirection, a last, desperate ploy to conceal his true nature from friend and foe alike. After all, this was a man who thrived in the darkness, a master of secrets and lies, a figure who understood that power is not just a matter of force, but of perception, of myth, and of carefully constructed deception. Perhaps Malcador lives on in some form, a shadow in the warp, a ghost in the machine, a living memory that whispers through the minds of his most loyal followers. Or perhaps he is truly gone, his mind scattered to the winds, his spirit lost to the immaterium, a forgotten relic of a long-dead age. In the end, we may never know the full truth of his fate, for the galaxy is a place of secrets within secrets, where even the most powerful of beings can disappear into the shadows, their stories lost to the passage of time and the slow, grinding march of history. But one thing is certain, Malcador's influence lives on. His legacy still shapes the Imperium, and his name still echoes through the dark corridors of power, a whispered reminder of the sacrifices that built the greatest human empire the galaxy has ever known. And as long as the Imperium endures, as long as humanity continues to struggle against the darkness, the shadow of Malcador the Sigillite will never truly fade. When you consider the scale of Malcador's ambitions, it's hard to imagine that he would have simply left the fate of his creations to chance. This was a man who built entire institutions from the ground up, who shaped the very foundations of the Imperium, and who understood better than anyone the importance of secrecy, control, and long-term planning. It stands to reason that Malcador would have created more than just the Inquisition and the Grey Knights as his legacy. He would have woven a web of hidden orders and secret societies, each one dedicated to preserving his vision for humanity, even if they themselves did not fully understand their true purpose. Some have speculated that these hidden orders might still exist within the Imperium today, operating in the shadows, their members bound by ancient oaths and protected by layers of secrecy so deep that even the most paranoid inquisitors have never discovered their true purpose. These groups might be the hidden guardians of Malcador's legacy, silent watchers who act as the last line of defense against the corruption and decay that threaten to consume the Imperium from within. One of the more intriguing theories is that Malcador may have created a secret order within the Inquisition itself, a shadow organization hidden even from its own members, charged with guarding the most dangerous and forbidden knowledge in the galaxy. This order, it is said, operates without oversight, its agents acting on orders handed down through the millennia, guided by the whispered echoes of Malcador's final commands. Perhaps these agents even believe themselves to be free agents, their every move subtly influenced by the ghostly hand of their long-dead master. Then there is the possibility that Malcador's influence extends even further, that he created entire organizations outside the normal structure of the Imperium, hidden brotherhoods and secret cults that serve his will without ever realizing their true purpose. These groups, it is said, might be scattered across the galaxy, hidden within the ranks of the Adeptus Mechanicus, the Navigators, or even the Imperial Guard, their members bound by ancient oaths and guided by cryptic prophecies that only they can interpret. Some have even suggested that the Custodians themselves might harbor a secret order dedicated to the memory of Malcador, a hidden brotherhood within the Emperor's own bodyguard, tasked with preserving the Sigillite's final wishes and ensuring that his influence endures even as the Imperium crumbles into superstition and decay. If this is true, then it's possible that these warriors carry within them the final fragments of Malcador's will. Their minds, shaped by forgotten oaths and ancient psychic conditioning, their every action guided by the last, whispered commands of their long-dead master. And then there are the strange, secretive cults that have sprung up within the dark corners of the Imperium. Groups that speak in hushed tones of ancient pacts and forgotten alliances, that carry strange symbols and whisper prayers to a figure they call the Sigillite. These cults, it is said, believe themselves to be the last true servants of Malcador, guardians of his final hidden legacy, and warriors against the forces of chaos and corruption that threaten to consume the Imperium from within. When you think about the kind of power Malcador wielded, it's hard not to wonder if he might have reached out to forces beyond the material realm to secure his goals. After all, this was a man who stood beside the Emperor, a being of nearly godlike power, a master of the immaterium, and a figure who understood the nature of the warp in ways that even the greatest psychers of his age could barely comprehend. If anyone had the knowledge and the will to strike dark bargains with the forces that dwell beyond the veil, it was Malcador the Sigillite. Some believe that Malcador, in his final, desperate moments on the Golden Throne, may have reached out to the creatures of the warp, not in submission, but as an act of pure, ruthless calculation. Perhaps he sought to buy himself time, to preserve his mind beyond the limits of mortal flesh, or to ensure that his work continued even after his physical form had crumbled to dust. After all, the warp is not just a place of madness and chaos, but a realm where thought and will become reality, where even the laws of death itself can be twisted and broken by those with the power to do so. One theory suggests that Malcador might have made contact with one of the lesser-known entities of the warp, beings that exist outside the more familiar pantheon of the Chaos Gods. These entities, it is said, are ancient beyond reckoning, beings of pure thought and will that existed long before the rise of the ruinous powers, and that still cling to the forgotten corners of the immaterium like shadows cast by a dying sun. If Malcador reached out to these beings, if he offered them something in exchange for their aid, it's possible that he bought himself a kind of twisted immortality, a place within the currents of the warp where his mind might linger on even after his body had turned to ash. Others have speculated that Malcador might have sought out even stranger, more alien entities, creatures that dwell within the dark spaces between reality and the immaterium, beings that are neither wholly alive nor truly dead, but something else entirely. These beings, it is said, have no loyalty to the Chaos Gods, no interest in the petty struggles of mortal beings, and no desire for worship or sacrifice. Instead, they exist in a state of pure detached observation, watching the tides of fate with an indifference that borders on madness. If Malcador managed to strike a bargain with such beings, If he convinced them to shelter his mind from the ravages of time and death, then it's possible that he still lingers on. A ghostly presence that watches over the Imperium from the shadows, his every thought a ripple in the dark seas of the warp. There are also whispers of stranger, darker deals, of forbidden rituals and ancient pacts that might have allowed Malcador to bind his soul to the very fabric of the Imperium itself, to weave his essence into the psychic web of human thought and will that stretches across the galaxy. If this is true, then it's possible that Malcador has become something far more terrifying than a mere ghost, a living force within the very heart of the Imperium, a being of pure will and intellect that manipulates the minds of those who serve his memory without them even realizing it. And then there is the question of the Emperor himself. Could it be that Malcador, in his final moments, reached out to his old friend and master, not as a servant, but as an equal, a fellow god in the making, and offered him a pact of mutual survival? Perhaps the Emperor, in his shattered state, accepted this offer, binding his own fractured mind to the lingering essence of his most trusted advisor, creating a kind of twisted, two-faced deity that watches over the Imperium from the shadows, guiding its destiny even as it crumbles into darkness. When you consider the kind of power Malcador wielded, it's not hard to imagine that he might have left behind more than just institutions and hidden orders. This was a man who understood the nature of the galaxy in ways that even the Emperor might never fully grasp, a master of secrets and forbidden lore, a figure whose influence stretched across the entire Imperium. It stands to reason that he would have created or hidden powerful artifacts, relics imbued with fragments of his own psychic essence, objects that might one day allow him to influence the course of history from beyond the grave. Some believe that Malcador, in his final moments, may have poured the last fragments of his power into a series of artifacts, objects designed to preserve his will and guide his followers long after his physical form had crumbled to dust. These artifacts, it is said, might take many forms: a blade that burns with psychic fire, a book filled with forbidden knowledge, or even a simple ring that whispers the secrets of the past into the mind of its wearer. Each one, a fragment of the Sigillite's will, a living piece of his mind, waiting to be discovered by those brave or foolish enough to seek them out. One of the most persistent rumors is that Malcador may have created a series of psychic anchors, objects designed to bind his spirit to the material world and allow him to influence the course of human history even after his physical death. These anchors, it is said, are scattered across the galaxy, hidden in the darkest corners of the Imperial Palace, buried beneath the ruins of ancient cities, or locked away in the forbidden vaults of the Grey Knights. If these objects exist, then it's possible that Malcador still lives on in some form, his mind bound to the material plane by the very artifacts he created to ensure his survival. There are also whispers of stranger, darker artifacts, objects that are said to contain fragments of Malcador's own soul, pieces of his shattered consciousness that still cling to the material world like ghosts, whispering their master's will into the minds of those who carry them. These objects, it is said, are cursed, their very presence a blight upon the souls of those who wield them, their every thought twisted by the whispers of the long-dead Sigillite. Some have even suggested that Malcador might have created entire worlds dedicated to his memory, planets filled with forgotten relics and hidden knowledge, places where his followers still labor in secret, preparing for the day when their master might return. These worlds, it is said, are hidden deep within the galactic core, their surfaces scorched by the fires of forgotten wars, their every mountain and valley a monument to the Sigillite's undying will. And then there are the strange, ancient devices that some believe Malcador may have hidden within the depths of the Imperial Palace itself, objects of such terrible power that even the most powerful psychers of the Grey Knights dare not approach them. These devices, it is said, are bound by wards and psychic barriers so strong that even the mightiest of daemons would recoil at their touch, their every surface etched with the twisted, writhing sigils of a language older than humanity itself. So, if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of Malcador, if you find yourself captivated by the forgotten corners of the Imperium's history, Then make sure to subscribe and join us as we continue to explore the hidden truths of the Warhammer 40k universe. Because in a galaxy as vast and dark as this one, there is always another secret waiting to be uncovered, another mystery waiting to be solved, and another story waiting to be told.